A very warm welcome to online and as well as to the persons here in our room. You will see them in a while when my face is gone and you see the whole picture. Welcome to this 8th edition of the DCZ Talks. DCZ stands for the Sino-German Agricultural Center, and my name is Jürgen Ritter. And I welcome you in the name of our cooperation platform to this meeting. A special welcome to our guest and main speaker today, Professor Fan Shenggen. Maybe you show him quickly.
Okay.
It's a real honor to have Professor Fan here, such a prestigious scholar. My colleague, Dr. Ahmed Rhodes, will introduce him shortly. Our topic today is the right to food, with today's focus on food assistance programs in China, which is actually based also on a policy brief which was drafted by Professor Fan and his colleagues. And you can find this also for download on our website, which is dcz-china.org. I wish us all a very interesting discussion, and I'm looking forward to the presentation by Professor Fan. But first of all, I hand over to Professor Ahmed Rhodes, who will introduce the session. Thank you.
Thank you, Jürgen, and thank you, Professor Fan, coming to our center. And we are very excited and honored to have you at our center. So let me briefly give introduction to our talks and you. The right to food is a fundamental principle of the FAO, which plays a crucial role in ensuring food security, nutrition, and sustainable food systems worldwide. And the proper definition from UN is right to food is right to adequate food realized when every man, woman, child alone or in a community with others has a physical or economic access all times to adequate food or means for its procurement. So as Jürgen already said, Professor Fan has written an excellent policy brief for us in December, which addresses issue food assistance programs in China. So Professor Fan Shenggen is currently a chair professor and dean of the Academy of Global Economics and Policy at China Agricultural University. And prior to joining CAU, he served as a Director General of the International Food Policy Research Institute, IFPRI, from 2009 to 2019. And he has led and conducted substantial research on public investment, food, nutrition security, poverty reduction, and food system and transformation. He is awarded as a fellow of the Agricultural and Applied Economics Association and honorary life member of the International Association of Agricultural Economists. So today, Professor Fan is going to introduce us his policy brief, which is mainly about food assistance programs in China, and in this he is going to introduce various programs, but also he put Chinese food assistance programs in the context of right to food and how as China is progressing in this area. Professor Fan, thank you very much, and screen is yours.
Sure. Well, thank you very much. It's really a great pleasure to be here. I think I tried to come here actually last time when Scholar Rizal came here, right?
Yes.
So I couldn't come. I think I was traveling to somewhere else.
Yeah.
But the Sino-German Center in DCZ has done a great job. I remember you had events in Bamboo in other places. So this time, first time, we see each other in person.
Thank you.
Pleasure. I think this sort of dialogue and exchange is very critical, particularly under the current geopolitical challenges right now. So I think, as you said, I worked for IFPRI for so many years, and we were really working together to promote global food and nutrition security. My institute usually has several hundred staff from different countries from more than 70 countries. We don't think the country boundaries. We think as one unit
Yeah.
without borders.
Yeah.
And my predecessor Joachim von Braun is a German, so we travel together. He drinks tea, I drink coffee. Why is that? The Chinese drinking coffee, a German is drinking tea. You can see the globalization really means you can do whatever you want.
Yeah.
So I think as this little brief mentioned that I think access to healthy, nutritious food is fundamental human rights. Whether it's a UN or recently the Food System Summit held in New York in 2021. The number one is to ensure everybody in the world has access to healthy, nutritious, of course, safe food. So there's no doubt that we must continue to work to make sure that to achieve that human rights. And what I'm going to do today is just to look at one dimension, that is food assistance programs, particularly in China, its evolution, impact, and global lessons. So why we need a food assistance program? What are the major food assistance programs in China? What are the China's experience and lessons? So finally, I'll offer some of my reflection. So right now, China is facing a dietary imbalance. As you know, China experienced a rapid economic transformation and social economic transformation, but also nutrition transformation from plant-based to meat to fish to almost eating too much. So basically from hunger to overeating to overweight obesity in a matter of 20 years. And that's a rapid transformation. So that's why you see today for let's say average Chinese, the intake of vegetables, fruits, aquatic products, eggs and dairy products is insufficient. We just do not eat enough vegetables and fruits. On the other hand, we eat too much red meat, refined grains. Refined grain basically means very polished rice and wheat flour. So, and also high fat, high salt intakes, including processed foods, including fast delivery foods. Here in Beijing, you will see it's very convenient to order any foods, you order online. The food will be delivered on your doorstep in 30 minutes, or in Chaoyang, maybe even quicker. But as a result, our health has been compromised, overweight, obesity. In 2019, half of the Beijing, well, not just Beijing, the Chinese citizen is either overweight and obese. So it's I think it's a crisis. It's a nutrition crisis. It's a health crisis. So as a result, non-communicable diseases like heart diseases, diabetes, strokes, even certain cancers have increased rapidly for the last 10 or 15 years. Now, on the other hand, there's also a lack of micronutrients. We call it hidden hunger. You probably can eat a lot. You can consume maybe 120% required. But if you don't eat right, the key micronutrients, iron, zinc, vitamin A, vitamin B, iron, are not sufficient in your diet. And you will see, for example, anemia rate among adults aged 18 years old, still almost 9%. In many remote rural areas, that percentage is much higher, probably 20%. And then vitamin A deficiency, yes, 4%. And then even more significantly, it's a vitamin D deficiency, it's 21%. So if somebody experiencing vitamin D deficiency, that person's bones, the bone will be very weak and be easily broken. So yes, deepening inequality, the rural-urban gap still remains. So for every, let's say, $1 earned in rural areas, urban resident would earn 2.6, 2.7 dollars, and that gap remained very high. Then regional difference, we know that, in certain areas, particularly Western remote, and you mentioned about Yunnan, Guizhou, and Gansu, the economic development and the nutrition status remain very low. And in some of the minority areas, some of the minority villages, let's say, in Yunnan, Guizhou, and even in Hunan, Hunan actually is a well-developed region. You still see a lot of stunted children, just in a very close village. Miao, and you know the Miao minority, Miao. So we are in a very close society. And if you travel to some villages, then you will see that girls usually under 140 centimeters, men under 160 centimeters. That's a symptoms of undernutrition, stunting. So then gender inequality, I don't need to mention that, particularly women usually marginalized in terms of food access due to unequal distribution of family resources. In my village, let's say when I grew up, my mother usually had to wait until we finish the food, then they can eat. In many parts of China, it's still the case. Mother usually eats the last, and usually, either insufficient food or maybe eating too much if the children have some leftover, particularly unhealthy food. So it's a double burden. So undernutrition, lack of micronutrients, and overweight, obesity. It is the case that in many parts of China, the overweight, obesity rates for women are higher than men. Well, usually this is true for many parts more in Africa, particularly the case. Then food insecurity of elderly. The China is aging very fast, but we have not paid attention to the nutrition status, health status, or particular nutrition status, the diets of elderly people like me. So I'm over 60 is classified as elderly. And from 60 to I think 70, 75 is called a young elderly. We're still young. But
Junior elderly.
A junior elderly. But I'm really young. That's right. Senior. Anyway, so you will see lots of elderly men or women in rural China. They're either sort of very skinny, very skinny. That's the basic lack of calorie, lack of proteins. And some are, that's very fat. You see two extremes, either very skinny or very fat. So for the Asian population, that's because we have not paid enough attention to the elderly population. And the major assistance programs, food assistance programs in China. Before I do that, I must mention that the largest hunger reduction, poverty reduction programs are actually agriculture and rural reforms in the late 97. I experienced that. So that year I went to college in 1978. It's in the middle of the reform. My father was a community leader. So I have observed how the rural areas has been reformed by allocating lands to individual households. And immediately productivity impact was huge, particularly from 1978 to 1984. 6 years, every year, agriculture GDP, agriculture productivity was growing by 6-7%. I think the largest poverty reduction, hunger reduction happened during that period of time. No matter whatever measure you use, it is the largest impact. So let's not forget the rural reforms, agricultural reforms were fundamental, were the essential preconditions for later economic reforms, urbanization, migration to happen. So then, okay, the first phase basically late 70s to early 80s, the reform. Then regional targeting strategies. So China actually launched the regional target to target poor regions, western part of the region, mountainous regions, not individuals, just purely just regions, mass development regions, that also help to bring the poor and hungry people from certain pockets of the region. And then obviously around 2000, the poverty alleviation agenda, very much focused on poverty alleviation. The vision is to end poverty is by 2020. Then after 2010, it is more targeted, the precise target to individual communities, households. So you can see, this sort of a various sequencing from very large scale to regional, to community, and to individuals. So right after probably 2000, China began to introduce various food assistance programs. This is called a traditional food assistance program. The programs different from the agricultural reform or regional development. So the first one actually called it 营养包, it's a nutrition pack. At that time, some of the nutritionists, particularly Professor Chen Chengming, the female, who is a pioneer on nutrition. She has worked with us with IFPRI, with Joachim von Braun, Pierre Anderson for so many years. So she was a pioneer in introducing this called 营养包. So basically, to develop a pack of nutrition foods, soybean powders, plus some of the micronutrients, iron, zinc, vitamin A, and so on. And as you know, the China always like to do the test first. So they pilot in some areas first. So for example, from 2001 to 2003, they begin to test, to pilot in many parts of the country, begin scaling back. So then, indeed, by, let's say, 2011, so many sort of poor counties, more than 300 poor counties in 21 provinces have provided the free 营养包 YYB, so free to 1.37 million children. There are some evidence to show that the children who have received this 营养包have benefited that. So stunting rate has come down because the proteins, it has proteins, vitamins, key minerals, and so on. Then another one, the student milk program. The China, thought, the milk can help children to grow. So milk program started around, again, after 2000. They tested around and then began to move up. The partner also supported the National Dairy Development Program. So by 2022, the 30 million students have benefited, basically school children. Then the largest, probably the biggest impactful program, it's exactly what I would call it a school feeding program. The full name is a Nutrition Improvement Program for Compulsory Education Students, simply school feeding program. So basically provided school meals for students. China has a 9 years compulsory education. Everybody can receive the food from that program. Initially, the government has set up a standard of 3 yuan per meal, 3 yuan, a long time ago. But as the price moves up, so the standard has increased to 5. Now there's a debate maybe to 6 or even higher. Compulsory schools. But in Beijing, if you have children to go to Beijing schools, it's not just central government, the Beijing city. I think on average in Beijing, the school meals cost you maybe 20 yuan. Well, Beijing is more expensive and they have more money. So this is the largest and probably the most impactful program in China. So there's some numbers you will see. Let's say China spent 196 billion yuan and 26 billion yuan spent in 2021. So the total is about 196 billion over time. but in 2021 alone is about 26 billion. So 37 or 38 million children benefit annually because the children move, they graduate. So it's not the same children, but they move. Some graduate, some come in. To me, this organization are just if not in the world, definitely in China. Probably could be the largest in the world because considering the size of China. Then there are some sort of non-government. So the three programs I have just mentioned usually is government sponsored, and sometimes actually interesting, recommended, advised by researchers. For example, 营养包 was recommended by a pediatrician, Chen Zhuli, and she also set up the Chinese Academy of Preventive Medicine, by the way. Then she later on to become the Chinese CDC. So the researchers can have big impact. And then the school feeding programs, yes, milk, student milk program, so all sort of proposed by scholars like us first, then they will do test, and then they begin to implement gradually, step by step. Okay. So non-government. So the food banks, here in China, actually, not many people understand what the food banks are. I think in Germany probably you do. I'm a board member of the Global Food Banking Network, so that's why I know the food banks so well. So every year, the global food banks provide billions of meals to many sort of underserved population in the world. Food banks basically try to receive donations from the food sector, processors, transporters, or even individuals. If you have food, not particularly dry foods, or if you have money, so the food banks are also happy to receive. And then with the money, with the foods, they distribute to the poor people in the community. And it's a very large network globally. US, almost every city, every state has the food banks. And in Latin America, I just came back from Brazil, they also have very large sort of food bank networks. I'm not sure in Germany, in Europe, you do? Yes, so I think, I used to get my family said, hey, every 2 weeks we clean our refrigerator, we clean our shelves, said, hey, if there are sort of dry foods, rice or beans, we donate. And we also work as a volunteer to help the food banks to repack the food, like a nutrition package. But China, unfortunately, China didn't recognize the importance of food banks until maybe 6 or 7 years ago. One of the first banks called OSIS Food Banks in Shanghai. So it's the same idea. So basically try to receive the donation from food companies in Shanghai. When the processors, bakery, or whatever, they think maybe there's a supply they cannot sell. But definitely good food, so not necessarily expired food. We never receive expired food. So, started before the COVID, but during the COVID, the food banks played a very big role. And now I heard that even in Guangdong, in Beijing, there are some smaller scale like NGOs who are doing that. And to me, it's a great potential. So it's not only to help the poor or underserved population in the community, it also helps reduce food waste and loss, helps to reduce carbon emissions. So it's basically double win or even 3 wins. So we try to promote carbon credits for food banks because food banks reduce food waste loss, reduce carbon emissions. Can they get the carbon credit and then use the carbon credit to do even better work? So here in China, the skill is limited. For example, in 2021, the donors, the donors in Shanghai, it's about more than 200. And they connected about 15 million yuan equivalent food. And they serve, 10,000, 20,000 people and so on. But one thing China does not want to accept the food banks concept is because they think it's government's job. So if there are still hungry people, simply the government has not done a good job. But I must say that China has done a good job. But that does not mean the food banks and no rules. So I think this is something we try to promote in China. And probably not necessarily as a, let's say, hunger reduction program, maybe as a food loss and waste reduction program. Much easier to sell to the government. It's much anyway. So affordable food shops in Nanjing, I think this is actually similar to many countries called fair shops. Yeah, India, in Egypt, they have fair shops. So in poor neighborhoods, the government start shops there. And then the government basically sell this food at much lower prices to help the poor community. I think Nanjing affordable food shops like that. By the way, I studied in Nanjing. Nanjing is my hometown. Then disasters response program. I must say that China does have a pretty strong program on that, particularly during COVID, the COVID in Wuhan. Yes, so the city or even the province worked very hard to make sure that everybody has access to good food. And this is called a green channel. Green channel means everything is blocked. Everything is sealed, but not food, not medicine. However, because of migrants in the city, it's very difficult for the government, for the officials to identify where are the people who need the food assistance, because some migrants live in an apartment, maybe even 10 or 15, and the government don't know. That's why there were some issues. But the food banks in neighborhoods, they usually know, oh, yeah, I know, probably in that apartment, there were 15 people living there. So I think some sort of a non-government, community-based, or even like food banks type of food system program can really complement the government effort. The disasters as well as the let's say like during the crisis, and the both government and the private sector, the NGOs can work together. So that's some challenges of existing FAPs. But I can see the challenges. Well, this slide does not represent what I want to say. I think it's probably China needs to focus more on individuals. Elderly is one. Pregnant women is another. We don't have a special program for pregnant women. We don't have a program for adolescent women. And nutrition is so critical for them. Micronutrients, elderly, again. So I think to target some of the programs to specific population groups, probably the next. Yes, targeting the region, targeting communities, targeting to, even households. But if you use certain ways to target individuals, so that's something China can do better. Then, how China can learn from other countries. One thing I can see is integrate the food assistance program with other programs. And also, in terms of food assistance program, there are many types of ways of distributing foods. I worked at IFPRI for so many years, for 25 years. So one of the issues we have looked is to look at different modalities of food distribution, whether physical food or coupon or cash plus behavior change. So simply giving them food may not be the best. We thought it's the best, not necessarily. But if you give them food, then the local market price may go down and may affect smallholders' income. And that's the WFP's approach. And WFP dumps wheat, rice into a certain region. Yes, for consumers benefit, but the farmers, yes, the market definitely not nothing destroyed, affected maybe. So maybe combination of cash and food. And on the other hand, in certain areas, maybe there's no food at all, then you have to bring food, the local context, and then behavior change. So many housewives simply do not know what constitutes nutritious foods. So, and IFPRI did some work in Bangladesh to train the household wives, understand nutrition, understand the hygiene. The hygiene is a big issue. You know, if you don't prepare food in a hygienic way, children have diarrhea, you lose all the nutrients. So the behavior and also the combination of proteins, fat, fruits, vegetables, and fish all together. And the behavior change is not easy. So in Bangladesh, we tried to bring all these women together. If just one meeting, there's no use. 2 meetings together, okay, we had the first meeting, so let's discuss. What have you learned? What have you done? With 3 meetings, 4 meetings. So we found that 4 meetings. If you have more, it's a waste of time, right? But if you have 1, it doesn't work. We found that 4 meetings. Well, obviously, that has to be context specific. Maybe in some countries, 2 meetings are enough. Other countries, maybe 3. So I think the context specific, repeated interventions helps to achieve. So as a result, in Bangladesh, the child stunting was reducing like 1 or 2% per year. And in some areas, 4% per year. So if they have a child stunting rate of 30%, basically through that interventions, you do it every year for 10 years, you will be able to eliminate this child stunting. So that's sort of a China could also learn from that. The different, let's say, the combination of cash, food, behavior change. I think behavior change is fixing. I observing in rural China, some of the elderly people said, "Oh yeah, I have enough. I just eat some noodles in Hebei. Easy to cook, easy to make, and they love noodles." In southern China, they just eat rice. But to change the behavior is not easy. And also sometimes the market, because simply they may not have access to fresh fruits, vegetables, to a local market. And I think some of the fast delivery is also not working very well. You will not be able to order fresh fruits, vegetables through Jingdong, like what you did in Beijing. Jingdong, you can do it in 30 minutes. So behavior change and the local infrastructure development. Then the China's lessons, as I can see, the well-sequenced and prioritized strategy would be a lesson for other countries. But for example, in Africa, they very much focus on targeted programs, relief programs, but their agriculture has never taken off. Without good agricultural development, what is the impact of your social protection programs? So I think some reform program to bring agriculture, to bring the overall economy to really fast growth track. That's so critical. So when the reforms cover the majority of the people, then you use a targeted program to target those who have not benefited from growth. I mean, that's something we learned from China. Now, another experience as I learned is China always do experiments. Or the one in Fengbu is not very far away from Fengyang. So they actually experimented the sort of a rural household responsibility system. So experience that to see whether it works. If it works, let's scale them up. If not, let's revise, let's change. So I thought that was also a good experience. Now sequencing, I think also in terms of rural urban migration. So for many countries, like Africa, even Latin America, the urbanization or migration without industrialization, it's almost a disaster. You see large urban slums because these people move to cities without job. In India, Mumbai, Delhi, Lagos in Africa. So I think you develop agriculture, then you promote migration to develop urban economies. Otherwise, so-called urbanization without industrialization could do much worse to a country. Then increasing social protection coverage. Yes, so there are lots of social protection and related to food. As I said, cash transfer, conditional cash transfer. I should also mention that conditional cash transfer is a good lesson for China to learn. The conditional cash transfer implemented in Mexico, Brazil. In Mexico, basically, okay, if you wanted to receive cash from the government, you have to send your children to clinics, send your children to schools. Or so the conditional transfer really help. Here, China have not experimented that. We could do more on that. So in terms of social protection coverage, China does have a pretty good coverage. DBOL program, DBOL, almost everybody is covered. DBOL, whether it's 30 yuan per month in rural areas or several thousand in big cities, but at least the network is there. But obviously, the DBOL needs to be analyzed because in certain rural areas, the level of the social protection is just too low. But during the last maybe a month or so, particularly during the 2 sessions, there were discussions about raising that standard. Because the social protection, on the one hand, it protects the poor people. On the other hand, it's not a waste of money. Right? You give the money, they spend. Right. China's lack of demand right now, right? Consumption. So giving these people, for example, okay, you're very rich. If the government gives you another $1,000, probably just put it in the bank. You're not going to spend. But if somebody's poor, they buy some food, buy some maybe cars,
stimulate the economy.
So they were spent. Then they will stimulate the whole growth. So that logic needs to be understood. It's not waste of money. It helps to drive the consumption, drive the demand, and drive overall economic growth. And obviously, with the internet connectivity, with the WeChat, you can monitor the social protection program very well. A strong focus on children. Obviously, you will see that almost all the Chinese food assistance programs focus on children, which makes sense because the children's nutrition is so fundamental. If the children's nutrition is compromised, it's a life sentence. The whole life will be affected. It's cognitive skills, physical health. So I think strong focus on children is a message could be shared with other countries. Of course, if you have money, if you can extend, to other groups of population, pregnant women, adolescent, and elderly. Now, fully embrace digital technology. I think it's no-brainer. You must do that. With digital technology, you can have an electric ID. You can monitor who received the money, avoid corruption, make sure that you can target efficiently. And China also had a way to check, monitor your wealth, whether you're poor or not. They know very well. The big data and so on. Even funny enough, if you use TikTok or use a Douyin, they know whether you are poor or not. Through your behavior, do they have an algorithm to calculate? And that targeting is pretty precise. So through that, you can target. Basically, through upon what you watch, what you buy. And then a strong focus. And And then using the food system concept. I think it's not just the grains. It's not just the food, but then let's also look at other dimensions. So what we eat really matters, yes, to our health, but also to our environment. So I have seen, or in some of the, let's say, school meals. The school meals can purchase foods from the neighborhood communities. Make sure that the food are produced sustainably and a good standard, good nutrition, good water. And I have an idea, nobody has adopted it yet. That is, I think the high schools, or middle school in China should have a vegetable garden, or a food garden, not just vegetable fruits, but even some chicken. So that the children can learn agriculture, learn farming. Meantime, they produce their own food. And in China, particularly in southern part of China, there are not idle land. Farmers don't want to farm anymore. They move to the cities. Well, can we rent this idle land to schools? Let them produce food. Healthy, nutritious. Children also get some physical exercise, learn agriculture, learn food. So I try to promote this even to the United Nations Food System Summit. So this July, the end of July, in Ethiopia, because UNFSS +4, the United Nations Food System Summit, 4 years after, we're going to evaluate the progress, identify the gaps, and propose to the actions. So one of the ideas I have is school garden, vegetables, fruits, or even chicken, eggs. For dairy farms, it's difficult. And also it has a pretty large carbon emissions. Chicken, or fish, low carbon type of food. So food system approach. So my final reflection, I think effective governance and multi-sectoral cooperation is so critical. This matters for China, for every country. The food, agricultural belong to many ministries, Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Affairs, Ministry of Health, Ministry of the Environment, and Ministry of Climate Change. So I think we need Ministry of Education. The school feeding program usually under Ministry of Education. And normally you wouldn't consider Ministry of Education as part of the food systems. But they actually run a very large school feeding program in many countries. So I think all these ministries have worked with. For example, the one I mentioned, the school gardens. MARA has to be involved. Local government has to be involved. Education has to be involved. Health has to be involved. So I think the cross-sectoral governance. Then data and technological innovation. So I think is using AI, using the digital tools to track, monitor the progress, to ensure that accountability, for example, make sure that there were cases, not just in many cases, the corruptions, the school feeding programs, but using data, using AI, to track, monitor the traceability, you will be able to avoid, well, not zero, but definitely minimize sort of misbehavior. And well, diversification, and well, I think the different types of assistance programs. It's not just government, the private sector, the NGOs, and not just a food. I think combination of food and cash, behavior change, and transparency, monitoring and evaluation. So China has launched at least 3 major food assistance programs. There are some evaluations. I hope that maybe more rigorous, evidence-based, data-based, research-based evaluation will provide even more credible policy recommendations in the future. Then international collaboration, yeah, absolutely. So I think that I was asked by you guys whether if it can really use the human rights approach, can use international collaboration. It's not just FAO. I think it's the whole global food system summit actually brought not just FAO, so many UN agencies together. I think probably more than 10 under the UN Secretary General. And then,
World Food Program.
yeah, well, for WHO, even WTO, UNEP. I think that so this sort of a collaboration should come from global level to the national level. So right now I'm writing an article now on it's a national governance. How could we can strengthen national governance to transform food systems? So many issues are relevant. By the way, last year during the G20, the Brazil launched a program called Global Alliance Against Hunger and Poverty. So Brazil actually came to us whether China can join, and China was happy to join, of course, but it needs support. So Brazil will allocate some funds, but the collaboration from G20 countries, maybe even beyond, can make this program more successful. So yeah, clearly the China's food system program can also serve as an example of implementing UN rights to food, which aims to ensure adequate and nutritious food for all. So I just want to stop there. The last point is October 12 to 15, waffle. So this year's theme is resilient food supply. Well, from production, from market, but also from a food system program. And the UN former Secretary General, Ban Ki-moon, has agreed to come. I think considering the current geopolitical divide, considering US beginning to move away from the climate agreement, from SDG, have you heard that US actually beginning to move away from SDG, not just climate, very dangerous. I think Ban Ki-moon was the one who organized the summit in 2015. More than 190 countries committed. I think that Angela Merkel was there, President Xi Jinping was there, Obama was there. More than 190 countries were committed to SDGs.
Yes.
The US began to move away. I heard that some European countries also began to drop. They are in UK, I don't know the continental Europe. So under this circumstances, I think it's so critical to make sure that we continue to champion West, continue to champion the food system. Yeah, thank you so much.
Yes. Thank you very much. It was a very excellent talk. And actually, I was the one who proposed, because I read your the paper and I proposed to my colleagues to ask you to write a policy brief on this topic. And I was always an avid reader of your work. And today, all of us learned so much about the food assistance programs in China and how it works. And it is amazing that China was able to achieve these food assistance programs, whether it's through agricultural modernization program, but also different individual programs to target communities, vulnerable communities, to help them to have affordable access to these foods. So I have several questions. I will get into them. And I'm also asking our panelists, you can switch on your video. So if you have questions, you can raise your hand and we can address your questions as well. So yes, and also in the people in the room. Yes. My first question is about this these programs which is targeting school children. So you also have mentioned in your paper, and I read this Scott Rozell's book on Invisible China. He also mentioned these issues, especially when it comes to nutrition deficiency in the remote areas, whether it's iron deficiency or calcium deficiency and other deficiencies, which causing a lot of children not only not being able to perform well because of these health issues, but even these issues dragged on to the later part of their life, like finding a job or successfully graduating from college or etc. So it's very I feel like it's very important, and you mentioned Yin Yang Bao program and school milk program. So these programs has been in place for the last 10 to 15 years, right? Do we have a definitive empirical results that these programs improved school children's health when it comes to these nutritional deficiency, and by how much? So is there like a conclusive empirical data and evidence on that?
Okay, without looking at the specific program, if you just look at the overall picture,
Yes.
the child stunting or
Anemia.
anemia, so they're going down. Absolutely,
Mhm.
they're going down. As I said, now the average anemia is about 8%. The children probably
Mhm.
around the same,
Mhm.
but 10 or 15 years ago was much higher.
Mhm.
So it has come down.
Mhm.
Largely, well, the overall socioeconomic development, overall income, access to food, and to some extent also the assistance programs. So yes, there have not been a consistent evaluation. So that's why we're asking for more data, evidence-based evaluations. There are some sort of sporadic ad hoc evaluation. So yes, there are some studies look at that. So for example, particularly 营养包,
Yeah.
营养包 it's easy to, it's very cost effective, right? It's very cheap. That 营养包 maybe just several yuan, maybe even less. In the very beginning, in 2000, starting in 2000, actually very cheap, maybe not even 1 yuan.
Yeah.
But they really helped children. Like the snacks, right? It's not really meal. It's like a snack, or yogurt type. So it's just a package of, then you use the hot water to mix it. So that helped. There are some study on that. Chen Chunming was still alive. And Lu Mai is another person in China Poverty Reduction Foundation. So one time they asked IFPRI whether IFPRI can do a more scientific based evaluation. But that time we couldn't do it because IFPRI needs financial support. But we cannot do a free evaluation. So that's what we do. We did it for Brazil, fully paid by the Brazilian government to evaluate their program, and a professor in Mexico. In Mexico, Brazil, they paid us to evaluate. But China, that time, they have that tendency of receiving money from donors. So, but there were some evidence to show that impact is there. Otherwise, it's large scale. But nevertheless, there are still lots of pockets.
Right.
As I said, minority area, remote regions.
I see. Yes, I was reading a paper also. The average height of high school students are rising in China in the last 3 decades, and it could be because of many reasons, but also Yin Yang Bao and other government-run programs is a part of these. The progress in the
Can I just interject a very practical question? 163 billion yuan over the past decades. Where does that money actually come from? What budget does it come from? How could so much money be mobilized?
Yeah, from the government, local government, because most of these programs are driven by the government.
Yeah,
Local government, central government, and so on. Except the last 2 or 3 programs, like overseas food banks or Nanjing shops.
so they just pay it out of their budgets.
Part of the government budget, part of the Ministry of Education budget, or Department of Education at a provincial level.
And my second question, and then I will open up to our guests in the room. So you mentioned Dibao and rural Dibao and other poverty alleviation programs. So can you tell us the experience of China, how China is identifying the targeted groups, vulnerable communities, or low-income residents to have these the affordable and equitable access to food, and also can you put that in under the context of UN's right to food concept and how this Chinese government initiated these food assistance programs are similar or different to the existing one in other countries,
Sure.
whether it's in
That's right.
in Germany or EU or North
Yeah.
America or India.
Yeah, on DBO, it's a minimum income guarantee. Yeah, so DBO means minimum income of protection. So the level varies by region.
Mhm.
In terms of targeting, usually it's in a community, the
Mhm.
village leaders.
Mhm.
So the village leaders, well, the good thing is they know what's going on. They
Mhm.
know who is poor, who is not poor.
Mhm.
On the other hand, could be some sort of I shouldn't say corruption, definitely some bias. Or if you are my good friends,
Yeah.
I give you a DBO.
Yeah.
No, but in general, well, that could
So
be
the
improved.
process could be
Yeah,
subject
exactly.
to
But one thing they
implementation.
have not done well is the link to food.
Yeah.
It's income. That's why the conditional food transfer. But now there's a new phenomenon.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. There could be the community kitchen
Mhm.
in certain rural areas, even city. Now they begin to set up a rural community kitchen.
Or something similar to soup kitchens.
Yeah, that's right. So you can call it a soup kitchen,
Yeah.
but it's not just soup.
Yeah.
So
A variety of
that's right.
foods.
So one of my students is doing a PhD thesis on that. So he's going to survey
Yeah.
the certain areas,
Yes.
particularly for elderly who do not have children with them. And almost half of the elderly do not have children with them. So basically they live alone, either a couple, husband and wife, or just a husband or a wife, because they either divorce or die.
Very simple.
And then for them to access to healthy food is a challenge. So that's why the kitchens idea come up.
Right.
And the kitchens are supported by the local government, by the private donations and all kinds. So we are studying on that.
Charity.
Yeah, so that's why right now it's in an experimental stage. Maybe after 2 or 3 years, after we have evidence, then we already begin to have some recommendation for the government.
More normal kind of such kind of services, maybe just serve some vegetables and other main food to this kind of peoples. So, but all this food are very healthy.
Yeah. Well, you see, it's various type.
Yeah.
Some kitchen only serve the 1 meal a day. Some serve 3, some serve 2.
Right.
And we'll see. We also wanted to look at the quality.
Yes.
So prices, quality, affordability. But they have to.
And
Actually,
nutrition content.
Yes, in some areas. It's not free.
Yeah.
You have to pay, but it's cheap, subsidized.
Right.
But even with the subsidy, maybe they still cannot afford. So we want to look at that.
Right.
Maybe with the DBO, so that's why the conditional
Right.
transfer.
Yes.
If you receive my DBO, you go to kitchen. And the kitchen is subsidized.
Right.
But all this food served in kitchen must be monitored, checked by nutritionists.
Right. Right.
But maybe in a township,
Yeah.
there are several, let's say, kitchens. Maybe one nutritionist can go around to check the quality, nutrition, what food they serve.
And it
Healthy.
should promote healthy diets, right? Not like
Absolutely.
sugar or
That's right.
things which can contribute to
Yeah.
obesity and other illnesses.
That's right. Absolutely. And also behavior change, right?
Yeah.
So maybe, that's what I eat in the kitchen.
Yeah.
It's just healthy. And then when they go back home,
Yeah.
when they cook their food, they know how to cook the nutritious food. Anyway, so this one, I'm quite excited at China aging very fast. 100% of the population is over something. And then in rural China, almost half of the elderly live alone.
Yeah.
It's a social issue.
Right. Right.
I would have a question from the chat. I think that
Yeah.
fits very well with the
Right.
questions about nutrition. So you mentioned the dairy school milk program that had to introduce a whole dairy industry in China. But what about tofu, a very
Yeah,
traditional, very
absolutely.
local.
My favorite
very
food,
good source
my
of
favorite
protein.
food.
And the question here is that actually within a project that we've done in the DCZ, one of the ideas that came out of this was to promote tofu in both China and also Germany, which is moving now more towards growing soybeans, and establish a tofu network. So the question is, what role can tofu have in a healthy food supply in China's food assistance programs?
Absolutely, absolutely. And I have a PhD student who just defended her PhD thesis on so-called alternative proteins.
Yeah.
So it's not just tofu, tofu is part of it.
Mm.
So we have strong evidence to show that replacing red meat with tofu can bring huge health benefits, can bring huge environmental benefits.
Right.
So instead of eating too much red meat, beef, mutton, or pork, you substitute that with a soybean.
Right.
Let's say could be 35 grams a day.
Right.
35 grams, that's not much, but that impact's huge.
Right.
And so now, I think couple of challenges we have. When I was young, we eat lots of tofu.
Mhm.
In the morning, breakfast, and tofu now. Yeah, doujiang.
Right.
And then lunch and dinner. But now for the newer generation, they don't like tofu. They like to eat meat.
Uh-huh.
They like to eat other stuff, sugary stuff, fatty food. So
Or Western food.
yeah, that's what, particularly through the fast delivery.
Yes.
Even some of my staff, they don't cook at all. They either eat in the university restaurant, which is good. The university,
very good.
yeah, my university tries.
Yeah.
Or when they go home, they just order fast food. They don't know how to cook.
Yeah.
So this is an issue. So I think tofu, the industry, processing industry has to do a better job.
Mhm.
And not just tofu, there are so many sort of soy products,
Mhm.
tofu, and even some meat product like sausage. Sausage actually can blend half of this soybean without affecting the taste.
Mhm.
So one of the professors in my university, who not invented it, who introduced sort of blended sausage.
Mhm.
And that Europeans already have.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if it would work in Germany. People that opt
No,
for
we-
tofu are vegetarian. I'm not sure they would like this blended.
Yeah, okay,
But
so
there
the
would be
Chinese
people.
actually, therefore vegetarian, yes, there are many. As you know, the Buddhist tradition in China, they used to imitate rabbits, ducks, geese, chicken,
Yes,
using soybeans.
Right. Right.
So I think it will take some time, effort. The industry is important. I know with behavior change, I think I love eating bean products, but the market do not provide that variety. So yeah, in the morning, doujiang, tofu, that's okay, the breakfast. And by the way, in my university, we have soybean ice cream. You should go there and try. But we
Next
introduced
time we should.
so the blended sausage, right?
Yeah.
And then the soybean, let's say, ice cream, and also alternative proteins.
We make a quick excursion to your university.
Have you done that?
No,
we should.
We would.
Yeah, and then we also have AI cafeteria.
Wow.
AI
That
means,
would be
okay, this
something to try.
buffet table.
Yeah.
Food is here. You bring a tray. Tray has chips in it.
Right.
So when you pick up the food from this, from this dish, it
Yeah.
will tell you fat, protein,
Calories.
calorie,
Okay.
and also, well, we also try to ask them to put the carbon emission there.
Yes.
Yeah, then you move to another one,
Oh,
they will tell you.
yeah.
So after you finish maybe 10, because we encourage you to eat different types of food.
Right.
Or calculate the total,
Right.
the
Right.
proteins, total calories.
Yeah.
And total fat.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
And
So,
they
all
become more
automatic.
self-conscious about what they eat and
yeah,
Yeah.
so And the student immediately reduce food waste loss
Wow.
because they see the price there too.
Yeah.
They say, oh, the red meat is very expensive. Forget it. So yeah, some of the automation, AI can change your behavior.
Right. And yes, please.
I would like to come back to the food banks. You mentioned that, and that you are also in the World Food Banks, what it is, Alliance, and that China so far was quite reluctant to introduce these food banks. And we have in Germany, we actually have many, almost in every bigger city we have them. And they are very, very necessary for the poor people. And we actually have a new term related to food security. We call it nutrition poverty. That even in rich countries like Germany, there is many people, by end of the month, they run out of money and they need to go to these institutions. It's the old people, a lot of elderly people who don't have enough pension. That's single mothers, even people who work, who don't have enough monthly income, and it's refugees. And there's many people, and a lot of people now complain that a lot of this should be the task of the government and not of these private organizations. And it's becoming more and more, at least in our country, it's becoming more and more a problem. The gap between people who are rich and go to the restaurants and can buy healthy food and organic food. And my impression, of course, Chinese government is reluctant because they said we have eradicated the extreme poverty, but maybe here in the cities there's also hidden poverty from old elderly people who don't have very small pensions. So maybe it's not only the behavior, but they don't have enough money to buy healthy fruit or whatever.
So it's interesting. In Germany, they think it should be government's job. But here in China, government said, oh, it's my job. So you don't do it, but you do it and lose face, right? It's my job. You take my job, So it's a government job to make sure that everybody eats nutrition healthy. That's their philosophy. But I do think government has a role to play, set up the right regulation. For example, the food banks. If you donate food to the food banks, you should have some tax benefit, right? Tax benefit or other benefits. So then the private sector has more incentives to do that. Then, and the carbon credit also. Then I think that the community-based food banks is particularly useful because they know where the poor are. Government doesn't know. Even in Japan, I saw some street people under the bridge. They received just a small bowl of rice. Actually, wow. Well, this is from NGOs. I thought rice is not good enough. You need some proteins, right? Nutrients. So basically, I think the government has a role to play, make sure they can cover majority of the people. Then the NGOs, they know where the poor are. Right?
Charity.
Because during the COVID, that was exactly the case. In big cities, the government tried very hard to bring food to community, to neighborhood. But let's dispute based on existing registration or existing the people in the book. So that's why enough people were not served because they were not in the government record. But the people in the community know. So I think I think that you need a both government. So for example, I think in many countries, they still needed to increase the coverage of social protection and link that to food. Then the private sector or the NGOs can come into the complement on that. So I think it's somewhere in between.
Jürgen.
Just a question, which you mentioned, starting with the children. I'm not sure if I remember correctly, but I heard in Japan, they actually have a nutritionist at each school.
Yeah.
And teach the children about nutritious food.
Yeah.
And the children then go back and tell their parents how to do that actually.
Yeah.
So is this actually a way to, you mentioned behavioral change, etc., to start with children at a very young age, actually? So
Absolutely,
pass on the knowledge.
Absolutely. So firstly, Japan has the largest nutritionist in the world, more than 1 million registered
Right.
or certified. So
Yeah.
they are well trained, so they have the best nutrition program. But children teach their parents in many countries. Peru actually was one of the first
Yeah.
in Peru.
Yeah.
So the children eat in school, and they were taught all this nutritious, healthy food. When the children go back to their home, oh, you should cook this food for me. In Uganda, it's even more interesting, IFPRI, World Food Program. They allow children to bring food, the school food, to home. Okay, here's one for you for lunch. You bring another one for your sister. Then the parents say, oh, okay, so this is the food from the school. And then they adjust. And then,
But I also can give you an opposite example. I grew up with a mother who paid a lot of attention to nutritious food. Every day I had nutritious food. I was so hot on junk food.
That's
I
good.
was out from home. The first thing was to go to get some junk food. Hopefully I'm the exception. And I hope everybody will eat healthy.
right. Well, but also, I think the availability of junk food is terrible.
Yes.
Let's say fast food restaurants, they got to cut fat, oil, sugar, ultra processed foods. So
And the
it's-
cooking method, like frying, is one of the way to add more calorie, right?
Right. So I think the whole society, how to cook the food. That's why for China, I think one of the biggest challenge right now is the fast delivery. Nobody controls it. You don't know what you eat. Be careful.
Yeah, but wouldn't it be a way then also to introduce that kind of a system, which I just mentioned, that each school or a bigger school actually employs a nutritionist, etc. So
Right.
that at
Sure.
least this knowledge is there.
Yeah.
I mean, if the people make different choices, it's their problem, but at least they should
Right.
know about it.
That's right. Well, in theory, the school meal menu should be recommended by at least a county school board or whatever, a higher level. So they do look at that. The nutritionists do often visit them, but in reality, you don't know. Because you can recommend, okay, so each student should have one banana, 1 egg,
One
maybe
orange.
one whatever. Well, that's fine. But when you cook the food, what's there?
Yeah.
Oil, fat,
Salt.
that's a killer. That needs to, I think, the chef needs to be trained.
Right.
But now in China, actually quite interesting. Most of school meals are not cooked in schools. They're cooked in a so-called central kitchen. I don't know whether you have heard about that. So basically, there is a big
Catering service. Yeah.
catering service somewhere.
Yeah.
So just before lunch, they would deliver 200 boxes, sometimes 2,000 boxes.
Yeah.
So that may be easier to control. Yeah, I visited some of them in Henan. So they prepare school meals. And so their nutrition is there. Because that central kitchen not only prepare food for children, but also for in certain factories, certain government, even government. So they have their own kitchen. They just have services from the food delivered by the central kitchen. That may help. They do have nutrition there. Yeah, but it is an issue. I think more important is nutrition should be really mainstreamed into teachers, into students.
Mhm.
And they know, because, otherwise you still don't know. I mean, the central kitchen will deliver food, you have no idea. But if you have somebody on the ground, school teachers, students, or government officials to check and monitor that. But it seems to me, they have improved quite a bit
Mhm.
for the last 5 to 10 years to really monitor the fact, because there were some food safety issues before. And because of food safety, they also begin to look at nutrition.
Mhm. Yes, yes.
So I remember when the school feeding program began to be launched, there were lots of food safety issues
Yeah,
and hygiene.
yes, yes.
And now through central kitchen, through other catering services, that has improved quite a bit.
So it can
So
be
you don't
better
have to hire your own.
monitored, yeah.
Your chef to cook the
Yes,
food.
yeah.
Yeah, many thanks for your presentation. I have two questions. First, how much of a concern or challenge is water quality in China with regard to nutritious food? And then you mentioned also SDGs. So I have not much knowledge about the content of the Global Development Initiative, but I wonder what kind of programs on food security are part of the GDI. Are those, for instance, those who have been most successful applied in China, or completely different ones? That would be also quite of interest.
Yeah, with the water safety, definitely in a public institutions, with the schools, or government agencies, or hotels, restaurants, I think that have improved quite a bit. But in some of very remote areas, the local residents still depend on, let's say, locals, the river streams and so on. Although that has been reduced quite a bit. And most of the citizens have access to pipe water. But in very remote areas, you still use the water well or the running river somewhere. And that could be an issue. Not only hygiene, but also to toxic sort of minerals. That could be some issue. So that's why the government also encouraged them to migrate to certain areas that where the soil water are highly contaminated by heavy metals. But it will take some time. I think the problem is somewhere in Guizhou, Gansu, or maybe Hunan, where you have also big mines. Big mines, they can pollute your water,
Right.
downstream water.
Yes,
You drink them.
yeah.
If you use to irrigate your crops, even your crops can be contaminated.
Even groundwater can be contaminated.
Yeah, well, water, underground water,
Yeah.
soil, land, and some of the land will not be able to be fixed for 100 years. Like Ukraine war, all the bombs there will take 100 years to get rid of this pollutants. So anything with any heavy metals, not easy. Only migration. We don't do anything, just make it idle there.
And GDI,
What is the GBI?
the Global Development Initiative?
Oh, global development issues on what?
Food security programs, what kind of food security programs are part of GDI, do you know?
Well, China food security, China basically UN have already stopped working with China. So then let China do their own. When the World Bank stopped most of the loans, some loans, sort of through trust fund or through others. But I think China now works with the UN or other agencies, mainly through research, through conferences like this, through dialogues, not necessarily through like the projects China used to implement, whether from EU, from Germany, from
What
United
about
Nations,
this
most of
South
them.
to South cooperation initiatives?
Yeah, well,
Under
yeah.
South
Well,
South.
South cooperation initiatives. One is Africa. Africa, the demonstration centers and food safety. Yes, they also work on food safety issues. They work on food processing issues, value chain issues. The South cooperation. There are some initiatives, and this center, I think your host. They have lots of programs.
Yes.
And they implement some of them. So, yeah, South cooperation is a big thing now.
Yeah.
And food and act for the own.
Yes.
Yeah, also thank you from my side for your very interesting presentation. I would like to take on first Mr. Gras's question on the Global Development Initiative, because I had the impression that previously parts of what has been doing, such as the food, nutrition relief programs, being done also under the roof of the Global Development Initiative, is already been doing partly by the traditional donors in this area before, like Western countries giving food or something like this. Do you see some changes in recent years, such as the launch of the Global Development Initiative in China's food assistance programs? And I have a second question, but I will ask this after.
Well, I don't know much about the global development issue, my ignorance. But one is, South cooperation, I already mentioned, and lots of things, but nutrition is not there. Food assistance program is not there. Still very much focus on agriculture technology, focus on smallholders, focus on processing, the whole value chain. But nutrition, not there. Food safety, yes, there are some collaboration with Vietnam, with some other countries. Then with global institutions, China obviously works with FAO, with the World Bank, with many, or CGIL, but mostly research partnership, but not actual project implementation anymore. China has already moved out of that. As you know, the World Bank stopped.
And do you see some difference between these activities being carried out from the Chinese side to like what we can generalize, say Western countries have done before, something like that?
Yeah, well, I think China mostly focus on how, not necessarily what. So for example, capacity building. So China received lots of students now, mostly from Africa, even in my university. So the students, masters, PhDs, let's say, food security, global development, nutrition. Yeah, nutrition is part of that too. So I think capacity building is one. Then very small actual project implementation. So that's my understanding. Usually, they still use networking, conferences, workshops. Because China overall, its grants of aid are small. It's mostly loans for development, and these are focused on infrastructure. But I think in the future, and only infrastructure development, some spending is to link this infrastructure to agriculture, the food security, nutrition could have very high payout. In fact, some years ago, China and the US were discussing how they can work together. China built the hard infrastructure, and US look at the softer side. For example, if you build a highway from Djibouti to Addis Ababa, now the railroads. But can you, let's say, build X miles to link that highway to a small village?
Mhm.
And then small village will be able to sell their agricultural products to the urban cities. To me, you don't need a big investment, just a small one to link to the trunk roads, highways, or railroads. Then when you have the infrastructure, the health, school will be much easier. But without infrastructure, it's very difficult to improve health. The infrastructure in roads and electricity, if you don't have electricity, your vaccines
Yes.
will not be able to be approved. So many people underestimate the importance of infrastructure.
Mhm.
That includes electricity, roads, water.
Nowadays, internet.
Well, that's
5G
like the
connection,
internet. That's
yeah.
absolutely internet. The connectivity.
Yes.
Broadly speaking, connectivity.
Yes, yeah.
So when you have the connectivity, it will be much easier, much more efficient to launch other programs, education, health, nutrition, even food security programs. So if the infrastructure is already there, I think either their countries or China could also help to bring the X mile, the last mile to the village.
That's my second. Yeah, thank you. And my second question would be, we have already talked about tofu, which is a great way to, in a comparably efficient way, increase the like now to diversify the source of proteins. We also have other sources such as mushrooms, or to increase nutrition such as honey, which is traditional way and not only good for the people, but it can very easily be like ecological value and increase income. But my question would be, is this applicable in maybe more remote rural areas in China to start not only with soybeans but also mushroom, honey, or something like this? And is this competitive when we have big agro businesses? Like, can we not only increase the nutrition, but also maybe generate a second way of income, which will automatically solve the problem of poverty?
Right.
But is this compatible?
So I think so. Last year we produced a report on big food. Big food, not, big food could also mean big food companies.
Yeah.
But in Western society, if you think the big food means big food companies.
Right.
But the big food here in China also means not just grains.
That's true.
So means your food sources from grain, from fruits, vegetables, from mushrooms, from forestry, from grassland, from ocean, from, let's say, even many different
Alternative
sources.
protein, alternative.
Yeah, alternative. That's alternative proteins.
Yeah.
So we did a study to look at that. So the potential is huge. Like forestry. Forestry can produce so much rich, nutritious foods. So not just mushrooms, bamboo shoots. Have you tried that? Even insects.
Oh, yeah.
In Yunnan province, they grow insects from bamboos.
Right.
And you could also raise chicken
Right.
in a forestry area.
Yes.
Well, don't raise cows or goats because they can destroy your forestry. But chicken up. So under the forestry, you can raise chicken. So that source is particularly important from forestry. We call it forestry food. Now it's only a small percent of total Chinese food is from forestry. But potential could be 10%, 20%. So that's one. But right now there's a problem. The contradiction between environment and food security. The Ministry of Ecology and Environment is very restrictive on the land use in forestry area. They ban in certain areas, they ban any economic activities. They ban anything. So as a result, wild pigs, wild birds have become pests. So they don't come to the village to destroy your crops.
Mhm.
And you cannot hunt them. If you hunt them, they will send the farmers to the jail. So you can see there's a balance between ecology and the food security.
Yes.
But the balance now is the other way around now. Some years ago, we used forestry, we destroy forestry, we produce food. But today it's the opposite. Because Ministry of Ecology and Environment set many zones, many areas, and made it red now. They wanted to convert the whole China, 30% of China as protected. Another environment, don't make any mistake, another. But there is a balance. Because you don't, for example, in certain areas, you actually do not destroy environment.
Yeah.
For example, mushrooms and the bamboo shoots, and even the chickens, ducks, they're harmless. So, but you have to protect them, by the way, because in the forestry, wolves or foxes, they will come to hunt your chicken. You have to protect them.
Yeah.
So I think that's some policy we need to set. And then grassland. Grassland now it's degraded, eroded. It needs protection. The lack of investment, overgrazing is an issue. So, and they use certain policy to protect them to improve the quality of the grassland. And the food sources go beyond just livestock. Even grassland, there are many type of foods. Chinese medicine, Chinese medicine, and not the foods with the medical functions can grow in the grassland.
Yeah.
And the ocean, ocean. It's not just fish; it's algae.
Yeah.
Huge biological mass.
Or cow.
Not because we're using certain sort of bioreactor,
Right.
convert that to protein, single cell protein. That can be used for feed or for human consumption. But that, I think right now is too costly. But with the technological development, the price will go down.
Right.
Alternative protein, the same. So we call it artificial meat or man-made meat.
Right.
Basically use soybean or other beans.
But there were also other cases, they grow the animal cell in a kind of machine or a lab.
Yeah, because that will take time.
Right.
We cannot wait for 20 years.
But last year, USDA or FDA licensed some chicken grown in such a way from the animal cell into chicken meat, and they allows them to be.
Also had in Nanjing Agricultural University.
Yeah.
So they cultivated beef from the lab.
Yeah.
That's too expensive.
Right.
I think a more quick, immediate solution, the plant-based meat.
Right.
Use soybean or mushroom, all other kinds of materials, and to imitate meat.
Yes.
I tried. It's very good. I think that's better than. I think the lab meat will take another 20 years. I think, the speed of the carbon emission, the speed of degradation is so fast. You cannot wait for 20 years.
Right.
We need some immediate solutions.
Yes. Thank you. I have one last question to our audience. We talked very extensively about China. I would like to know our German colleagues or European colleagues or some other colleagues from other regions on Zoom to talk about the food assistance programs or right to food concept in their country or region, if there is one. If not, then we can close it. If there is one, like the one we just talked about in China or in Europe, or like the USDA SNAP program where people get kind of card where they can go to groceries and buy food. Do we have any? So
No. We volunteered to put forth.
Well, Trump wants to reduce that.
Yes. Then thank you very much, Professor Fan. It was very enlightening, and very great lecture, and we all learn quite a lot, and we hope we keep like cooperation going, and also we wish you a success with your research and also your international collaboration work. Thank you.
No. So thank you.